cool. Well, welcome, Anthony, to Spiritual Danger Close podcast. I see from your discography and conversations that you are on the West Coast, you're West Virginia, and you're pretty close to a new music star that just blew up Oliver Anthony music. So
Yeah, that's something, isn't it?
that is very interesting. And I just listened to his episode of Joe Rogan Experience, and he is such a genuine guy, and I feel like you can see that in his music, and I see that in your music. So you haven't blown up to number one top billboards everywhere yet, but you are very genuine. I have enjoyed our interactions uh, quite a bit. So it's been pretty cool coming across the new Christian metal scene. And
Yeah,
we're really,
likewise. Appreciate that.
yeah. Actually, before this happened, I was chatting with Proclaim the Sky. Apparently, I shared something that disappeared on my Facebook, but they were really appreciative of me sharing their stuff. They're pretty dope as well. So, um, and I just had a conversation the last episode with Robert Manzone of Searching Serenity. He is phenomenal as an artist.
Yeah.
He, just super great, and now he's into photography, which is really cool.
Hmm.
So if you're ever in Florida and need some sweet discography album pictures, he's got you. I'd be able to hopefully set that up between you two if you ever get down there. But it's just really awesome seeing talents explode. So let's talk about how you came to get into music, some background, naming of the band, and then kind of get into your process if you're open to that and discussing your music. I would love to play some music on the actual episode, but I'm not really big enough. I'm a little iffy on letting that play through. So we'll definitely be putting some links up in the show notes. So
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I've always been like a big music nerd. I've always just loved, like, I came across a lot of Christian bands when I was like an early teenager, and it just kind of like blew my mind that there could be music that like sounded good and also just like actually like proclaimed the gospel and like wasn't like trashy. So I've always kind of been into that, and I always kind of wanted to make music when I was younger. I've had a guitar since I was about 14, 15. I was always kind of messing around with like playing like Flyleaf and Skillet and Red and, bands like that. And then when the pandemic hit, I think all of us kind of were just like, thrown a little bit. We're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it just kind of occurred to me that, yeah, you can do home recording. Like it's a thing. And I was like, how do I go about doing that? And so I kind of just started messing around, and a lot of YouTube tutorials later, I was able to kind of get somewhat of a system set up to where I was recording, and it wasn't very good at all. Some stuff was pretty it needed a lot of work, and so I kind of came into that process and have finally, I think 3 years later, gotten to the point where like, okay, I kind of like what I'm putting out now.
yeah, you talk about quality. So I'm in a couple diverse groups that I found from TikTok and music reviews, and it's always like try to improve your set and your quality. Unironically, we're talking about Oliver Anthony music, but his song "Ain't Got a Dollar," he said he recorded it on his Android and just straight up distrocated it, and it blew up, and it's in the top 100, and it's just this busty song with no mix or anything on it, just pure raw Android. And Android microphones are not amazing. It's not like what we have right here. So it's real funny that that's how music is. People like your message, it can grow. And I think 2020, you're right. People found new hobbies in 2020. So
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
this podcast is also reflecting of that. Lockdowns happened, couldn't go to church. I started feeling myself kind of slipping in discipleship. And so I just kind of was like, I like writing essays. What if I write theology and philosophy and kind of tackle some questions and personal experiences and share testimony of Christ? And that's where we came. And then somehow along the lines, I started interviewing folks like yourself. So
That's really cool. And I feel like you're talking about the Oliver Anthony stuff. I feel like for his genre, that's like okay. I feel like for our genre, if you put something out and you try to record on the phone, there's no way people are
you're
gonna
getting
like that.
you're getting clowned. You're getting clowned.
Yeah.
You're getting made fun of. It's just it's so gatekeepy. With Robert
Yeah.
Manzone, I was talking about how music is like EDM is very gatekeepy. Like, oh,
Mm.
that is not house music. That is dark house music. Like, it's the same thing. Stop. Get out of here. Sorry. These are my two cats. They're gonna be bothering us while we
Are
have a
you good?
conversation. But
I have two cats myself. I'm surprised the one's on in here crawling on me right now. My wife might be trying to keep him corralled.
but yeah, it's like yeah. We'll get into that whole metal community for a little bit. I'm not trying to make it a roast on metal. It's not it's not the vibe I'm going for. But yeah, so you started doing it. So what did you start first? Have you always played instruments? Is it something you did when you're growing up through school?
Yeah, I started off in school playing trumpet when I was younger. And that kind of gave me a taste of just how music composition works, like just how, you're playing one instrument, you're part of a greater purpose, you're part of the band where you kind of have harmonies and different parts. And I always got really like intrigued by that. Like, oh, like I'm playing trumpet now and I can hear the flutes and I can hear whatever going on behind me and it sounds really cool. So I eventually dropped out of band when I got into high school and it just became a little bit too much time commitment wise. But I started playing guitar and really got interested in that. And I basically learned off of tabs from like ultimateguitar.com. Like that was really the thing back then, kind of playing off of that. And but I was never into singing at all, nothing like vocally at all. I never really trusted myself much with that. I'm not very good at it from like the clean vocal side of things. So that kind of came later. And for the longest time, it was just learning how to play guitar and eventually picked up bass a few years ago as well.
And then so when did you start doing vocals as well? Is that something you just kind of like played along with, singing along with tracks and just kind of started doing it more focused and
Yeah, I started just basically always kind of just belting out stuff in the car along to whatever, metal or rock I was listening to at the time. And so I kind of started just doing it like in my, I'm listening to something and I kind of heard myself screaming. I'm like, you know what? I kind of might be able to do that. And so I just started recording stuff at my house just with my like home recording system. And all of a sudden I started like, okay, what would happen if I put a vocal on top of that? And I did it. And I'm like, huh, that's actually better than I thought it was as far as the screaming side goes. So just kind of rolled with it and have kind of been looking up. I've kind of more like, like everything, YouTube tutorial taught, how to do it without killing yourself and and all that. So yeah, it's been kind of a process, but it's been something I've developed over the last 3 years roughly.
okay. Um, that's pretty close to what I started doing as well. Again, 2020 COVID restrictions. There's a man named David Benitez. He's been in the music scene for a while in different bands that just kind of started and then just stopped, and then COVID happened and he was trying to do his own thing and it didn't work out. But something he wanted to apply was same thing, it kind of like in your shoes. And he's very gifted musically, but he's also a talented instructor. So he started the Extreme Vocal Institute. I don't know if you've looked at any of those videos or have seen him. He does the how to scream like Ollie Sykes and breaks it down in
Mm.
30 seconds to give you that. The EVI has got tons of course. Afterwards, you want me to help set you up and gift you a month to see what it looks like. That has been invaluable for me, at least, in trying to improve what little vocal skills I have. So it's kind of hard to find stuff out there that's what's the word I want to say, that's not going to destroy you, because in the
Yeah.
early days of music, like let's look at Corey Taylor. If you hear him, it sounds like he's been smoking cigarettes, which he has, but he's got like a really harsh voice. He's kind of thrown up. Looking back in the day when he was younger, it wasn't as harsh just because of how easy the throat is. So, and I think Will Ramos said it the best, and I love this analogy. He said, like a guitarist can strum away and destroy a string, a vocalist can't afford the same thing.
Mm.
So,
That's very true.
uh, Yeah, you only get one guitar here.
That's right. You get to go out and buy another one.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe someday, but not in our lifetime.
Yeah, very true.
So you started doing this whole recording, doing the home studio, playing around 3 years doing and I'm trying to pull Spotify up to get your discography because I can't remember which song came first. Um,
Yeah. So I did From the Dust first. That was like an intro track, and that'll be the first
okay.
track on my album when it comes out. And and the reason I did that, kind of a funny inside look, is because and as you know too, like you can't have like a Spotify page or like an Apple Music page without having some sort of song released. So for me, I was like, well, I don't want to put out Vine Dresser yet because that's going to be, I was like my kind of the single I was most excited about. And I was like, I don't want to put that one out first when I have zero audience right now. So I ended up putting out From the
From
Dust,
the
and it,
Dust.
yeah, and I enjoy that when it's a nice intro track and stuff. So I'm kind of like, well, that's kind of a little kind of taste, and so kind of get my pages established. Then when I get a little more of a following, I'd put out Vine Dresser as my second single.
Well, I think you're already verified right now as I'm looking
Yes.
at Spotify, which is I don't even know how that works, but I don't know. Ever since Elon Musk took over Twitter, now X, I guess you can pay for verification, which
Yeah,
there's a
that's
whole um, informational technology debate that you can have on that. Um, but yeah, that's really awesome to kind of like delve into that. So the discography talks about your band name coming from this idea of putting it on the line for God and really basically putting yourself on the altar. And um, how how quickly did you get to that? Did you feel inspired? What was the process of coming up with this really great band name?
I appreciate that. So it's been a long process. I have gone through a ton of band names. That's this is one and done for this project, but I do have other stuff out under a different name as well. So it has been. I went through probably 5 or 6 different names between 2020 and 2021. I just couldn't settle on one. I have older stuff out under another name called Once Gentiles. And I put an EP out under that name, and there's some stuff on there I'm proud of as well. It's a totally different shift of focus, though. I mean, it's still Christian and all that, but um, that was kind of like from frustrated at like the worldly perspective, and as a lot of like anger in that music as well. There was some hope as well at the end, but when I kind of sat down, and was like, okay, do I want to stay under a moniker like that, or do I want to kind of make something a little more personal? So when I started thinking about that, I was like, well, I went through literally I started looking through the Bible, like, okay, what are kind of cool words, cool phrases that would make a cool band name? And I wasn't really coming up with anything, at least nothing that wasn't already taken, which was kind of the most frustrating part. I'd like come up with certain ideas, like phrases or certain words, and I'd like search them into Spotify, and they were already taken. So I'm like, oh no, there's already someone called that, and I wasn't about to, try to, steal someone's name and cause controversy. Or I know there's multiples out there for different bands, but I just didn't want to be that way. And so I was like, well, I kind of like the word altar. That's cool. That's already taken. Altars was already taken as well. There's a band on Face Down called that at one point. And I was like, well, if I'm making music kind of from the heart here, when I just combine the words, and then I was like, well, what can the focus of it be? It's like, well, yeah, like it's kind of like a two-sided thing where it's like we're gonna put our hearts at the altar for him, and we're also going to basically just um, make our heart an altar to him as well, like kind of offering ourselves up to him on a daily basis. So, and I feel like that also kind of reflects with what I'm trying to go for with not only like my debut album that's coming out, but also just like the band in general. It's like this is a personal thing with me and the Lord, kind of an open letter, if you will, to sharing just life struggles and life's triumphs just through him, but like in a musical fashion as well.
That's really awesome. Yeah, really uh, coming up with something new. There's somebody out there that's done it or said it, so it's kind of like oh, like I did a type and shadow in a similar kind of fashion. Like I went and I was like found some verses and was kind of playing around, and um, I found a type and a shadow, which is kind of confusing. So, but it's a type and shadow. So it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting. But yeah, the Altarheart is really kind of excellent. And so what's up with the band logo per se? What were the ideas going into that?
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm a big logo guy. I just like kind of like the whole like advertising branding side of how like media works and stuff. And I was like, well, what can I do about this? I was like, can I just make it a big A? What should I do? And I was like, well, so I kind of just decided, how can I combine an A and a heart and also have a cross in there somehow? So I kind of just was getting on Google Illustrator and just putzing around, and I was able to kind of figure how to combine all that. And yeah, turned out with something I hadn't really seen before. And I was like, well, I think I'll go with that.
and the design stuff, I feel like in the metal community is a bit of a controversy, I guess, of how crazy you want to be, and um, the clawed, scratched band names where it's indecipherable, where you have to like really sit up there to read it. You're like, what on earth is that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Or it's like super simple, like print block. It's really awesome. So
yeah.
I really admired that. And the discography art is really simple on both of those. So I really enjoyed that. So,
Oh, well, thank you.
but it's interesting coming up with something and seeing it kind of come to fruition, and then just casually seeing yourself pop up on Spotify, or seeing it in different things. It's
Yeah.
really great. And I want to say I found you through For the Rock uh, playlist,
Mm.
which I found For the Rock through a Christian deathcore Facebook group,
Oh,
and
very cool.
they had shared For the Rock, and then I'd been hanging around on For the Rock, and then obviously saw that they had a playlist, started following it, and then I saw you, and then you just randomly were typing on someone else, I think Proclaim the Skies thing, I think is where we were talking or something.
Mm.
So um it's really cool. I feel like the Christian metal community is a little bit more tight knit than the other ones. They're kind
Oh
of
yeah.
like fractured all over the place, or it'd be hard to kind of like jump out in a new genre like pop. There's so many pop artists all over the
Yeah.
place. If you type pop on TikTok, it'll give you a whole bunch of like underground artists. So those folks have to work hard to make themselves visible in that community.
Yeah, I bet.
Saturation, not that saturation is bad, because with music, people can get very fine-tuned, nuanced taste with who they want to listen to.
Hmm.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, the
So,
production value is so streamlined where it's like it has to be at this echelon production wise for people to even like not care. But half the time, I feel like with pop, it's like it's on the radio, you hear it, so like there's conditioned to it sounding a certain way. So the moment something doesn't hit that sound quality, it's like, oh, that's not very good, even if it is a good song. It's just, production is such a key part for not even, I mean, that genre, but also for metal. I feel like it's paramount.
and there bites the rub. Um, Mixing and mastering engineers and people who are in the industry producing and any sort of thing, your ear gets tuned to hear that. And I know for my song, the biggest complaint I have is the mix could be better. And I'm like, would you guys just, I get it, stop. um and listening to people, it's really hard to turn off that critiquing ear. And I had just finished a mixing course through waves.com, and they said the biggest issue engineers have is turning that ear off, because you end up constantly critiquing stuff.
Mm.
So they said that the hardest part of being a mixing engineer is knowing when to say enough is enough and calling it good. um, so that it gets really hard to listen to new music, when you sit there and you start critiquing, you're like, oh, loudness could peak right here. I wonder how I would deal with this treble or the echo. And oh, I wonder how they did this like reverb towards the end. Wonder what automate. And then it's like, okay, silly, just listen to the music.
I know it kind of ruins you, doesn't it? It's like you
Yeah.
start listening to stuff and you're like, oh, I would have done it that way, but it's like that's how they wanted to do it, or maybe that's all it could be done as, you know. And I know I've go through my stuff like I have like 15 versions of every song I've tried to put out, you know, and finally it's just like, oh, maybe I'll tweak this here, tweak this there, and finally getting happy with some of them. So it's a crazy process.
And learning to be happy with stuff as it is, I think that in itself is a talent, because you could always go back. Like Oliver Anthony, we've already brought him up. He mentioned he would like to get that "Ain't Got a Dollar" recorded in a nice studio to just make the quality sound nicer. But at the same time, there's something very unique about knowing that he just threw it on his Android and threw it online. There's something to that. So, and that also shows if you have a real message with what you're trying to say, it doesn't really matter the quality because people will see that. And I think there's a community called Sound Mind Beats. He's a producer. He's got a couple hits on Spotify, and he's got some gigs picked up to make music for shows and series and etc. That's what he does. He just preaches. And then there's another guy. His name is Study Show. His name's Adam, and he does mixing and mastering. There's a band called Mara Jade, named after the Star Wars character Mara Jade.
Hmm.
In the book canons, Luke Skywalker was married to a redhead that used to be an assassin for Darth Vader called Mara Jade, and so they have some stuff, and they're really awesome. And I'll shoot you their stuff after the episode if I can
Yeah.
remember. But I digress. They really say you got to find getting picked up by a studio nowadays is kind of irrelevant, as we're seeing. Like Anthony, he turned down $8 million to get picked up by these studios just because he doesn't need to.
Mm.
Um, so we're kind of seeing a musical revolution, which is why I think we're going to be seeing the best music we've ever had, because we're not having some dudes in suits tell us this is the music you're going to listen to. Or if we get into the darker side, for instance, have you heard of the issue of the artist Kesha?
No, actually, I don't know what's going on with her.
Um, let me pull it up so I get the history right. Um, Kesha. She blew up in early 2000s. Um, let's see. I'm on the Wikipedia. So
Yeah.
she kind of blew up. 2009, she was featured on Flow Rider's "Right Around" song. Um, Broke the record for most single sales with 636 downloads. And then she came out with that song "Animal" in 2010. Um,
Mm.
Punk alternative bands were making tons of covers of it. And she had a bunch of other songs. Um, and then she ended up in a legal battle with her longtime producer, and then lead single, and then basically were having issues where she was not wanting to record music because of some of the disputes that she had with the producer, and the story behind some of that's kind of like dark, and basically they prevented her from being an artist because she refused to agree with what the producer was wanting.
Mm.
Um, and now I think she's gotten out of it because I see some new stuff, but um, the industry is kind of interesting with that dark side of oh, if you want to get big, you're gonna have to do this, which may be highly immoral and unethical, to get looked at.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of sorry, I tend to digress a lot, but
You're good.
I
I feel like
think
Taylor Swift just went through something like that, right? She's doing all her like Taylor's version because of
yeah,
her
Yeah,
discography being like not hers
because
anymore.
they're trying to sell it. George Soros Foundation somehow got it. Not to go down that conspiracy rabbit hole, but when I heard that, I was like, yeah, it's expected.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just terrible. Like you don't have rights to it. So um yeah, cool. You could get picked up by Sony, but nobody cares about that nowadays. Not even music heads
yeah,
care about who you play with, or where you're recorded at. Some people have like pretty expensive $10,000 home studio recording things where you would have no idea that it wasn't recorded in a studio. When you find out it's this dude's garage and the neighbor was mowing next door, you'd have no idea.
yeah. Very true.
So for getting back to your music, did you do most of your recording in your room, or are you going? Do you have a studio you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a little just little home studio corner of my man cave here that I do it in, and so I use I have a guitar interface and um, do plugins and do it that way. Just kind of hook up the mic through that and try to soundproof it best I can, and just kind of it's just worked for me to this point. A lot of the magic has come with what I've learned from mixing, EQing, and kind of doing it all that way.
What kind of DAW are you using? And for those who don't know, it's a digital audio workstation. So
Yeah, I used Logic. Um, I
oh, okay.
started I started out with GarageBand when I was first going, because it came, it's free on your MacBook. I started off with that, and it was honestly it was fine for the longest time. But I decided, what, if I'm going to really take this seriously, I need to upgrade. So a couple of years ago, I switched up to Logic, and it's been great. Um, and Yeah, it's been pretty solid. It's been not too bad to learn. If you're familiar with GarageBand, it's easier to get into Logic than, say, switching over to something like entirely different that like isn't made by the same manufacturer like Apple.
Yeah, I'd say that's a big setback for people trying to get into music is just the digital cost to
Yeah,
have that. Um, Not that great music can't be made on GarageBand, but you have like limiting factors in your ability to do that and recording input as well. Um, for those who are geeky, I kind of want to dive into that. So, what microphone are you using for your recording? Kind of like what other setups are you doing?
yeah. So I'm going with Old Faithful, the Shure SM57 with a
Okay.
mic with a pop filter. This guy, this guy right here. Um, so I just use that. For my guitar, I have an Ibanez Geo 7 string that I've been using. So nothing too fancy at all. It's honestly pretty baseline stuff, and just a lot of just kind of tweaking stuff as I try to get better.
Yeah, I think I was like, I don't know how much money I'm willing to spend into music because it can get very, very expensive if you're not
Yeah.
paying attention. And I really wanted the Shure 7MB, which is just like the class gold standard for deathcore vocals. But it's kind of pricey at $200 for
Mm.
the microphone. So I want the Shure SM58, which is I think the brother or sister to your 57. So I kind of went with it because if you look at people recording on stages, most of the time they're singing. I know at Work Tour they were using Shure, 58s. It's very common. In fact, my church actually has a an earlier version of that as one of the microphones for cordless or wireless setup for whenever we decide to use that.
Very
makes
cool.
it makes it pretty easy. Plus, if you end up going out of your house and you want to do a live show, you'd already be set up with something like expect it. But that's pretty cool. Are you running a audio interface with
Yeah,
the
I am.
57?
Yeah, I have a Focusrite Scarlett
Oh,
2i2. It's been very good to me. That was when I was Googling everything and kind of looking up, like, okay, like what's best for kind of like starting out. This one, Focusrite, came up a lot, and they have different variations. But for my purposes, the 2i2 has been good, and yeah, I've got no complaints. It's been pretty solid.
if somebody's wanting to start out, I think my recommendation now is on Amazon. As much as I've bemoaned Amazon, they have a basically several tiers of beginner kits for it, and they have a a PreSonus and a Focusrite setup that you can kind of like pick between. That gives you microphone interface, cables, microphone stands. One of them I even saw included a kit that included a sound foam for your room. And sky's the limit with it. One of them was like a full MacBook. It was just like, man, if I had $5,000 to go drop on something,
Yeah.
be a fat Amazon delivery package. But yeah, Focusrite is
Yeah.
really cool. I went with an M Audio. I have a Behringer in the other room. I ordered the Behringer on AliExpress, and oh, sorry, Mario, what up? And it disappeared. Like it just was like it hasn't shipped. And I messaged the seller. They're in China. They weren't responding. I was like, okay, so I canceled the order. And then I ordered the M Audio because it was on sale. And then the Behringer showed up, and then that showed up. So now I have two to play with if I want. So it's been kind of nice.
Nice.
I've been seeing a lot of Focusrite ads. I think they're trying to algorithm brainwash me into purchasing a kind of a different setup for more recording, but I'm happy with what I have.
Yeah. And that's all that matters, man. If you like what you're putting out and it's working for you, there's always time you can upgrade later if you want, or if you just kind of have it and you're making it work. I feel like that's the thing. I feel like there's always this pressure to like you got to get bigger, 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 and try to get that sound. But sometimes you can figure it out with what you have.
Yeah, like guitars, like you could have the world's most famous guitar, and you could go get a Walmart special. And yeah, sure, there's going to be some audio quality differences, but it's going to
Yeah.
do the same thing. Um, I think that's something else too in the music community. You can get like super bent up over like, oh, did you record on digital drums? Are those real drums? Like, do they sound good?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Have you ever been into a real music studio?
A buddy of mine has one. It's a home studio. So I guess it depends on how you look at it. I mean, his is pretty legit. It's not like something going down to Nashville or anything, but he uh, he has helped me out with the mixing and mastering side of it, as far as like giving me pointers. I self mix and master now, but early on he really showed me a lot. And so yeah, I've got a little taste of kind of what that setup looks like. We attempted to record a Christmas song a couple years ago with another buddy of ours, never really panned out. So, but it's definitely it's a cool setup, whenever you go in and you have just like everything just right there all in one place. But what about you?
Um, not to not to flaunt it, but I've actually been in the Muscle Shoals recording studio. So for those who don't
Wow.
know, that's where basically Southern Rock was born, is Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And it's kind of interesting. You can still go record there. I feel like it's almost buying a Nike at this point. You're more buying a name brand. The studio and equipment and analog studio is there. It's got different rooms and stuff. So when they're not doing recording, they can do studio tours, and it's really cool being in the room where big huge bands have been through there. So it kind of, I feel like in that case there's something different and special about that room. Like Leonard Skinner and Led Zeppelin recorded songs in this room, which is just kind of crazy to think about. So I feel like there's some difference. And yeah, there's some dudes with some crazy home setups. So um I'll send you my buddy Soundmind Beats TikTok so you can look at his home recording. But I'm pretty certain he does that full time, if not part time. He's got a ton of money set up there with full analog for mixing and mastering, and he's actually doing a giveaway for some Collie monitors. I think they're like 3.5-inch monitors. He's doing that. Should be happening pretty soon if I remember right. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to set up. I have FL Studio, and then I have Ardor. Ardor is like an open source DAW, which is kind of cool because it's being community driven. And the founder and creator of it wants to keep it accessible to everybody. So technically, it's free to use and download, but they suggest and request a kind donation. So I think I do $1 a month to that. So I pay $1 a month for an open source DAW. And
That's
it's
cool.
now getting a lot of cool features that a lot of the mainstream DAWs have. So this point, it's come almost kind of like if you want to be an Adidas man or Nike person, it's kind of depending on what you want to do with your music skill. But that's awesome. You have a friend that can help you with there. So sorry, we're digressing so much. Writing out the songs. Some people get very defensive about how they write songs. For instruments, are you sitting around just playing and doing the Coheed and Cambria method, sitting on the floor, jamming away, eating some bowls of cereal, or are you just driving to work, tune along, and oh, that would be a cool beat with me.
Yeah, mostly the latter because it'd be kind of hard to play guitar and eat cereal at the same time. So
Supposedly,
need more
that's how.
hands.
Yeah, that's how apparently "Welcome Home" was recorded, or the chord progression he came up with was
Oh
sitting
my
on
gosh,
his kitchen floor. But
that's a brilliant
that's
song.
that's just like
But
Claudio, though. But
yeah, yeah, most of the time. So I like to just come in here and jam. I'll play some riffs and some leads and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, I'm thinking of lyrics first. And a lot of the time I'll be, yeah, like maybe driving to work. Maybe I'll just be, walking around doing something or something happens and I'll get inspired. Or maybe I'm sitting here listening to a sermon at church, something just hits me and I'm like, I wonder if I can make like kind of like a rhyming sequence out of that or like some sort of like a poem-esque kind of layout. And then so I think about that and I write it in my notes section on my phone and I kind of get something envisioned and all of a sudden I can kind of just hear the music around it. I'm like, okay, here's kind of what I'm going for. And I'm like, okay, this is what would have to happen on guitar. And then this is what would have to happen vocally. And a lot of the times it's pretty lofty goals for vocals because a lot of times I have like, singing in there and all this stuff going on, which I like can't do. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I then adjust that when I get into start recording? Cause it's maybe not turning out how I wanted it to. But then I come up with something that's like a good plan B. I'm like, okay, well, I can do this. So let's do this. And usually, yeah, the lyrics first, and then I kind of put the music around it. And every once in a while, I'll come up with a riff, and then I'll write song lyrics too. But that's pretty rare.
I feel like that's pretty standard, kind of mixing between the two, kind of doing that. I'm not I'm instrumentally challenged just because I haven't played one in years. I played violin. I think that I made second chair, first row back in the day.
Very cool.
Um, and then I just moved to a school that didn't have a program. And after a while, as a little kid, it's kind of hard to keep focused with it because it was like you need a mentor to help you through certain things because there's only so much you can do on your own. And I really didn't have the motivation for it after not having friends to go do it. And I honestly think I liked getting out of class to go play instrument as school.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that bit. So um, and I haven't picked up an instrument. I tried getting into bagpipes because my family's heritage is Scottish, and so I thought that'd
Hmm.
be cool. So you actually get a pipe and a reed, and then I bought one on Amazon, and it was cheap Chinese quality, and it didn't, and it was just frustrating, and um, I haven't picked it up again. Um, and then I ended up finding music, and so I've been doing that. So I think if I jump into an instrument, I think drums would be pretty cheap because you can do a drum pad, or the
Yeah.
digital drum sets are like $200. But maybe a guitar. I am thinking of a song. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm looking at a medieval instrument. I found one for a very good price.
Oh,
So that might be something to record, something very interesting. So my
that
my
sounds really
pers
cool.
my personal take is we've all heard the same songs over and over, so I want to make sure every song I put out is 100% unique in its content and stuff. So for me, I think the lyrics that I have right now that have been most impactful, all three were written while I was sitting in the sauna at the gym
Huh.
because I feel like the natural man is just so angry you're sitting in there that it's bad influences can allow your spirit to really kind of like come through. And I was able to focus on some of these songs and kind of be very retrospective of what I wanted to talk about. And then I hit up a online producer for deathcore, and that's pretty much where I got some of my stuff through. And this morning I finished a waves mixing course, so I'm waiting back on my stems to start mixing. So I'm going to try to release a demo as well, which you kind of teased in our communication back and forth. You have something coming up, so if you want to jump into that and discuss that out, it'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So my third single called Haze, which will likely be out, I think, by the time that this is posted. So that's my third single. And I'm gonna end up having four singles by the time the album comes out, which will be late this year. No street date quite yet, but so yeah. So the I'll give you an inside look to the album and what we're going for. It's called Deny Thyself, and it is based off of Matthew 16:24, where Jesus says, whoever wants to, be my disciple must deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. So when I first started writing songs, this batch of songs, I started thinking about just like the disconnect between us and God as human beings, like the sinful nature that we have. And it frustrated me so bad. I was like, this is, it's so like, it's so awful to think about this sometimes, I guess as children, like we aren't, living up to that. And he loves us still, but it's still frustrating from our perspective, how we want to, be more holy and be more like him. So I was like, okay, well, where does this all come from? Well, original sin, the Garden of Eden. And so I decided to kind of make the first half of this album basically a concept album with the Garden of Eden, kind of starting off with From the Dust, him making us from the dust in the first track, till eventually we get to Haze, which is track 3, where the fall happens. And so kind of talking about this kind of haze we feel over us being, riddled with sin, kind of feeling something that's not right. And kind of putting myself in the shoes of Adam and Eve during that time, of like all of a sudden, like things were good. All of a sudden we were kind of walking toe and toe with the Father, and all of a sudden it's like we're not, and we don't feel connected to him like we did. So the chorus of the song goes, no wrong or right, whatever is right in my eyes, can you delay my demise? Kind of talking about like, all of a sudden I feel this free will that I didn't have, and I'm choosing the wrong thing. I'm choosing what's right in my eyes, not what's right in your eyes. Can you save me still? That kind of deal. So it's a very intense song, as you've heard, and it's not meant to be like a I'm not ending the album with that one. Obviously there's hope, as the album goes on, but it's like in that moment, it's like, it's intense, and it's like you feel this this like kind of internal disconnect, and also this internal turmoil as you're grappling with this newfound sin that you feel at the time.
Yeah, I can really that the Matthew 16. I pulled it up here. I'm a fan of the King James version. It's about as far back as I'm willing to go. I'm not learning Greek to get into it. I'm not that kind of apologetist. I don't have the bandwidth for that. There's some people that love to, oh, the Greek actually means this. No, I don't really care about that. It's important to know, but anyway, yeah, it's such a powerful verse, and the imagery itself is foreshadowing a type and shadow of what Christ himself would do. That he himself in the Garden of Gethsemane, you can see him like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, knowing what was about to happen through all the pain and suffering that he was going to go through. And then finally he's on the cross, and he's still sticking through to the plan the Father sent him for, and that take up his cross and follow me. So it's really a lot of foreboding as well of it. I think, not to get into the apologetic side of it, I think a lot of Christians think it's going to be easy, and it's not.
Right.
If you look through if you exclude the Paulinian scripture and you look solely at the gospel, the first 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what scripture we do have available to what people recorded from that time was Christ was pretty focused in alluding to self-sacrifice and the willingness to kind of put ourselves in there, not so as much as intentional martyrdom and taking other people's lives with you, but the almost kind of like the story of Abraham and Isaac.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I really feel, having gotten to listen to Hayes, that there's a lot of that dynamic. I really love the flow and the instruments for it, and the backing, the mix. I really enjoyed that. But
Thank you. Appreciate that.
yeah, it's kind of cool to listen to people's music before other people do. It's kind of fun. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's there. The Holy Bible has a lot of stuff to pick from. To
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. In fact, the song from System of a Down, um, Rick Rubin was basically saying that Sergi was having trouble, and Rick just joked and said, "Pick a book on the wall and get some inspiration from it." And he ended up grabbing the Bible, and it's the New Testament where Christ is like asking, has the Father, like he's on the cross and like, Father, have you abandoned me? That kind of thing. And so that kind of went into the song. So um,
Is that how
to
Chop Suey was born? You mean, or are you talking some other
was it
song?
Chop Suey? Yeah, I may have been mixing
Yeah.
the songs
I
up. Sorry.
or I'm not sure. I was always kind of skeptical lyrically because he's saying like I need you to trust my self-righteous suicide, which I always kind of did
Yeah.
not like that phrase. So I wasn't sure if that's where he got that from or what.
Yeah, the self-righteous suicide, which is why a lot of people were like, is this Christian?
Yeah. It's like eh,
So
I don't know.
anyway, I thought that was interesting, say the least. So um, yeah, Matthew's a good book as well. There's a lot. I think out of the four gospels, I think I like Matthew's take of it a bit more. Um, but I do like Luke, because Luke was a physician, so he's a little bit more analytical. And
Yeah.
if you kind of read it, it's almost like this is the scientist recording events how they happened.
Yeah, and that's why I tend to
um,
prefer Luke as well. I think I go back and forth, but I feel like that one with it's like okay, I feel like that guy it's like that guy, he was a little more like of a story, and it's like okay, I think this is kind of like logically, if I'm gonna think like you said in timeline order, I kind of do like that as well.
my my thing is, I wonder what books that we are missing that were just destroyed by evil men, or what was there. So I'm really into the whole, what was Christ doing for those years until we see him start his ministry. So
Oh, I'd
um,
love to know. Yeah,
I'm
that would be
personally of the
cool.
inkling that his family and his life, he went eastward, because there's some Eastern traditions that basically say Jesus came through here, the one who ends up being killed by his own people.
Hmm.
So it's kind of real interesting. So, but anyway, so Vine Dresser and From the Dust and Haze, those are going to be there. Do you feel like the album is telling a bigger story, or are you sticking within just that concept of creation to the garden? Are you going to like the earth and then the apocalypse and resurrection? I'm not sure.
So yeah, not quite that far.
Okay.
Jesus will make an appearance. Let's see here. It is yeah, the first like 4 or 5 tracks are definitely Garden of Eden based. We kind of take a lyrical left turn and kind of go to some more personal stuff for a few tracks. One of which will be a single coming up. And then we turn a corner lyrically about halfway through the album where we start getting confidence to start actually following Christ and denying ourselves. So we kind of get to a point where all of a sudden it becomes more of like motivational instead of like lamenting. So we get to a point, and that's where Vine Dresser comes in as well toward the end. That Vine Dresser is track 8 on the album, and that is just it's a confession to God right through those lyrics. And that one's based on John 15. And so we get to that point. Then we have a song toward the end, which I'm excited about. It's about Jesus in the wilderness, being tempted by the devil. It's called Death Valley. That'll be put out with the album. But that's gonna be one of the heaviest, and that'll be kind of, as we end the album, we kind of get toward that where Jesus is basically just telling off the devil, and then we get to we like, and I have a closing track that kind of wraps everything up as well.
I like that. There's a whole vibe. I feel like that's something that the metal community, you either do rock opera or you don't. You're thematic or you're not. And
Mm.
and a lot of people have kind of like stuck with it. I think one of my favorite bands for rock opera, there's a an album by a band called Dissonance and Design, which is beautiful band naming.
Yeah.
Um, and the album work drew me in, and it's basically extra dimensional beings tearing through our reality because scientists in a government lab opened a portal.
Hmm.
And the whole album is start to finish of the scientists like, oh no, I don't think we should do this. Probably not a good idea. Opening the portal. Oh, these beings that are sucking the essence out of everything in this realm that we can't comprehend realize we're watching and are coming through. And then
Yeah.
it's those are really cool. I really enjoy those kind of albums that kind of take you through a story, or they're not really disassociated. I feel like hip hop is very disassociated. There's really not a story. There's very few artists I can think of where there's like a continual story.
Yeah.
It's like they put out a ton of songs and hope that one of them hits. There's not really a thematic theme throughout that you can follow along. Um, are you are you influenced by other bands while you're going through this process, or are you trying to carve your own path, um, per se, if that makes sense?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think I've definitely had moments where I hear a riff and I'm like, oh man, I want to write something that sounds kind of like that. But most of that hasn't made it to, hasn't made it out of the workshop, if you will. Haze was that riff was definitely inspired by like early 2000s new metal, a lot of like Slipknot, stuff like that, Corn, so I do like that side of it. And I wrote some older stuff like that under my old, once Gentiles band name, it has a little more kind of a new metal influence. And I have a soft spot for that genre as a whole. But anymore, like when I did like Vine Dresser, that was something that was totally different. For me, like I didn't really take inspiration from anybody. I just kind of like, you know what, this is kind of what I want it to sound like. It probably does sound like some stuff out there, but it wasn't like I was trying to like, copy anything. Um, when I'm writing, it's kind of like I hear a lot. I listen to so much music, like influences are bound to be in there in places. Um, I also feel like though, like I'm really into metalcore and a lot of the bands on like Solid State and Face Down. But I feel like for me, a lot of that's hard to emulate. Like I'm not the guitar player that I would need to be to emulate a lot of that stuff. Like I can't shred like Phineas or like, Fit for a King or whatnot, but I can at least put stuff and melodies together that's, something that I like. So yes and no, it depends. I've already kind of started writing stuff for another album in the future. And a lot of that stuff is a little more technical. I'm trying to get better at my skill, but not trying to just rip off the genre as a whole.
Yeah, I think you get these bands that become super influential. I know in deathcore right now, there's always the top three, and they influence the community so much on what you see other album and artists doing. Not to say that they're not great with what they do, and their music isn't isn't bad per se, but it's just like, for instance, Lorna Shore has gotten metal community using tons of orchestral and choir operatic hits. I can't
Mm.
complain because one of my unreleased songs I'm working on right now has that throughout. It was very inspirational to think. When you're talking about you were a trumpet player, I'm hoping. No, I'm not saying you have to, but I would be tickled if we just have a trumpet solo.
Have a little bit of a little
I feel
ska
like,
break in there somewhere.
yeah, a little ska break. I feel like it could work.
uh
It could work.
somebody did that a few years ago. Well, I don't know if it's trumpet or what it was. It was just horn section. Becoming the Archetype did
Yeah,
was it Cadillac
I,
Rebellion?
yeah. Someone had a saxophone in one of their songs, a saxophone solo. Little sax and axe. Got to bring
I
that
like
back.
that. Yeah.
No,
I don't know. I haven't picked up a trumpet in so long. I ended when I
yeah.
played, I actually just yeah, like a little something in there. When I played, I used my aunt's trumpet at the time, so it was kind of a nice, just a little cheap alternative to have that. So I gave it back to her when I was done in high school. So um, if I
Sorry.
pick one up today, I don't know. Yeah, it's like I'll
Yeah,
take this back.
yeah,
um, maybe I don't know if it would fit, but we'll see.
yeah. I a family member sent me a big band because a lot of people are like big band is still. I feel like it's underground, but it's gonna. I feel like we're gonna see a lot more big band with this sort of like societal revolution we're going through right now. And this lady's just going to town as you got this guy on a bass just boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, she's holding a bagpipe in her hand. Please tell me that that is a bagpipe. And sure enough, it is. And it works. So I feel like confidence in what you're doing and just kind of being unique in that aspect and kind of like being brave. Because what's going to happen? People are going to listen to the song for 30 seconds and hit next, or they jam through everything and like, wow, this is really freaking awesome. Like, I can't believe like this is really cool. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but again, like we were talking in the beginning, our community can be very harsh. And I feel
Yeah.
like the music community itself can be harsh. Like, oh, you should stop being vocals. You should go back to your day job at Waffle House. Like, it's just like really harsh stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which can be hard too. But I feel like the criticism is necessary if you're really learning and if you're really into it, you're going to accept it. So I had that whole blurb on the Type and Shadow Facebook page about like the whole criticism because somebody said something about my music where they basically, I was putting up a song like, hey, just want your guys' thoughts. It's pre-mixed. That's all it is. What are your thoughts? And he was like, Logan, I love you. You need to think, are you into instrumentals, producing, mixing, mastering, or songwriting or singing? Because you're not into either of these. And so I was like,
Mm.
and then I started thinking about it, like, is this really something I feel called to do? And kind of put some effort on there. Kind of fallen off. It's really hard to stick to playing instruments and routines. Do you do vocal practice every day, instrument practice every day?
It depends. I definitely don't vocal practice every day. I really only do it whenever I find time. And I usually am in the recording process when I do that, which probably not ideal. So I need to get in a better practice of that. But I do try to play something about every day, maybe 3 times a week, depending. A lot of the times, and just because of the process I'm in now, where I just got done mastering all my stuff for this album. I've been doing a lot of the tech stuff every day. So like maybe throwing in a last minute mix or maybe re-recording something real quick that doesn't sound good in the master. So kind of I've been doing a lot of like tweaking every day. And once I kind of go through this cycle, I'll probably start playing more every day. Or when I get inspired, I'll jump in here and record something before I forget it.
Yeah, the whole mixing and mastering part is hard. I know it's people can do mixing and mastering. I think the advice that I saw was if you do have to master your own stuff, put it away, don't listen to it for a minute, and then come back to it. Because they recommend to have like different mixing and mastering engineers because the master may be able to hear something like, hey, I don't think this mix is quite right in this section right here. We do something different just so that you have new fresh eyes. But when you're doing it yourself, you're like, oh, I think that sounds great.
Yeah,
Getting
exactly.
that feedback. So um I didn't really hear anything that really stood out from a listener perspective. You can always find tweaks. So I think Hayes, you have Hayes. Hayes is right there. It's at that medium rare. You got a medium rare steak. I don't know if you like steak
All
medium
right.
rare, but I was like, this is good. This is good.
Appreciate that.
I like the lyrics and I like the mix.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
EQing has really helped me with that. I originally put out some stuff like back when I was kind of just solely doing Bandcamp, and I really wasn't messing with the EQ much. And I started looking up, techniques on how to do that. And when you layer everything a certain way, and you obviously make space for that kick and that bass, it really makes a difference. It's first time you do it, you're like, yeah, I see now how this works. Why wasn't I doing this before?
when I was going through, the mixing course foundation was 2 hours long. I'm like, is there really 2 hours of stuff? And this is just the foundation of it. And just kind of seeing everything you need to do to kind of like do a checklist, go through, prep everything, and then hope that you have everything recorded to how you need it, and then be able to do it
Yeah.
from there. So yeah, I definitely had to go back and re-record some stuff. I'm like, I don't like the way it sits, or I get up. Um, I hear the best thing for writing and music is to do it, put it there, go do an activity like walking or working out, and then come back to it because your body is energized and you can be more open to something. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like your ears get conditioned too if you sit here too long and keep listening. You're like, oh yeah, that sounds good. And then like you just kind of get in that pit and then you think, oh yeah, this all sounds good. And then you come back later and you're like, nah, that didn't sound good.
yeah, I'm in the military, so I have tendonitis sometimes. So like I can't have certain things. Like I need an audio break.
Mm.
If I had a Daredevil sound room to just like block all the noise out, that'd be cool sometimes, just to let my ears get a rest from crazy noise. Because it's they say my hearing's fine, but I'm like, are you sure about that? Are you sure? What did she say? um, anyway, but yeah, that's pretty awesome. Um, so do you think that you would be playing any live shows or adding other people to your project? Have you had anybody reach out to try to like get with you to do that? Or you're not at that stage quite yet?
I'm not in that stage quite yet. As far as live shows go, I don't think so. Just because I'm solo at this point. But I do play some, like I play bass at my church. I enjoy that. I kind of get a taste of doing that, and that's enough for me right now. As far as the live stuff goes, but um, yeah, I'm kind of in an interesting position to where like I have a lot of friends, including my own brother that's a drummer, but we don't really have a setup to where we could like get together and all record stuff.
Mm.
So that's why I've kind of just been doing this on my own. And I mean, I kind of get stuff out faster that way anyway. I feel like I don't know how bands do it with like five people, you know, trying to coordinate everyone's schedules is tough enough coordinating, mine. So it's like I totally respect them immensely for having done that for, eons now. But um I'm definitely open to working with anybody for sure. I think the logistics is obviously the toughest part of it. But I'm always interested to kind of see what else is out there.
That's what happened with Searching Serenity. The band was actually formed, and they did an album together, and then Life was like, yeah, we got to go our separate ways. He was like, I like this.
Yeah, if I
So
still want
he
to
was
do this.
like,
Yeah.
I got to learn drums. I think his brother actually, or his brother-in-law maybe plays drums. So like he was basically picking up same thing like you, guitars, vocals, music all over the place. So um, uh, they actually did get to play a live show at the first album, but not anything recently. So do you think we will see any other music videos or lyric videos for this upcoming? And which songs should we expect to see that with?
Yeah, totally. I just recorded one for Hayes. So I'm actually in the process of editing it right now. I'm about maybe three-quarters of the way through. So I'll be putting that one out pretty shortly after it comes out on streaming services. So it might even be out by the time we're airing this. But so and that was fun. My brother is actually because I want to get him involved because he's such a talented drummer and stuff. But so he's helped me at least run camera for my videos and all of that. So um, we did that. It's turned out really cool. I think like it kind of matches the tone of the song with all the chaos going on. So I'm excited to put that out. Um, I will be having one final music video for my final single. It's called Baron, and that'll be put out after probably a month or so after this as well. So yeah, we'll end up. I'll kind of put out a video for each single, um, and then we'll go into the album with just everything being put out at one time after that.
I do apologize about my cat. He's hoping a bug is on the ceiling. He's such a clown. Here, get
Yep,
down.
I know how that goes.
You're such clowns. I've said this before, but having a cat is going, I want an apex predator as a roommate. And the only difference between a big cat and a house cat is the size. They're all the same. A tiger will act the same as a house cat. And a house cat would kill you if it had the ability to.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hope. It's real awesome. There's a lot of aspects to think about when you start doing music. You're like, this is terrible. Like, you gotta figure out where stuff goes. Some people just get it. Some people have that true talent where they know how to do it. They pick up a basketball and they know how to put it in the hoop and they do it seamlessly. Meanwhile, you've got a person who sits there and dribbles and does all these drills and has to work literally 18 hours a day to do it. It's really interesting how talents work. And what sort of blessings have you felt from doing this to kind of like strengthen your continuance into it? Because let's face it, it's not cheap for those who don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. So I've definitely felt blessed in the way that there are lots of ways to do it and gear to buy that is not it's not breaking the bank. I kind of set a goal early on. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not gonna try to like, make this my full-time thing. I'm not gonna try to make this huge deal where it's like putting down all kinds of money toward this. Like that'd be ridiculous for me anyway. So I think like it's been a blessing to come across, like a audio interface that's relatively decently priced, to be able to find ways to get microphones that are decent. And I think that also it's also been kind of a blessing to be able to put some things I'm feeling down on paper, almost kind of like in a therapeutic way. Not that it like would replace, something like therapy, but a way that, where it's kind of like, okay, like this feels good to kind of get that out. Like I have a song that's actually not even going to be on this album. It'll be on an album like probably next year sometime, but like it's about like my losing my grandma's Alzheimer's, for example. Like I've put that down and it's been recorded and mastered, but it's just sitting there because I don't want to put it out quite yet. I'm kind of not really wouldn't fit on this album, for example. It's just kind of feelings that you feel. It's like, man, like it just feels very cathartic to put that out there and to hear it, especially in a way that kind of sonically sounds satisfying. So I felt very blessed for the Lord to be able to provide me an opportunity to be able to do something like that.
Do you have like conversations with your congregation you go with? Do they know about your dark secret here?
Yeah, a few of them
Oh,
do. The funny thing about this is not a lot of people do know that I'm doing this. I mean, obviously my wife, my brother, but like I haven't even told my parents that I'm making music. I think because, which is stupid, but like I think because I mean they would be absolutely enamored, I'm sure, because they're very supportive. But originally when I started doing this, it was embarrassing, because metal is not something that's highly embraced in society. It's not, and especially like the kind of vocals. And I think like, certain people be like, oh, like you're gonna like destroy your voice, like what are you doing, or like lyrically, like, oh, like are you okay, because some of it's kind of intense. It's like, yeah, but it's just kind of a fun thing to do that has some meaning to it. But members of my church congregation, a lot of we're blessed to go to a really good church where we're at, and a lot of people are around our age. So a lot of people that are also into music, that are into just like tech stuff like I am, I've been able to kind of share that with them. And some are metalheads and some aren't. A couple guys that are have come to me and said like, hey, like I, sound really good, man, nice job, or how'd you do that, and things like that. So I've been able to bond with some people through things like that. A friend of mine who's not even really into making music at all, but he just wanted to come by and see how I did things. I'm like, yeah, come on, I'll show you my little shack here, So
that's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I had a family member. I was sharing before, so the Facebook page I have, I repurposed it. I was trying to I do hobbies. That's my hobby is hobbies. Right now I'm trying to make it podcasting and music, but I was doing a car reupholstery service at one point in the States. And so I basically being overseas, tried doing it here, didn't do anything, switched to like trying to sell coin bags and purses and things. Nobody, I was like, you cheaps. So I just put it away, haven't done anything, and then I repurposed this for the Facebook page. But before then, I'd been sharing the links, the musics, and I wasn't being coy about it or sheepish. I'm like, I released a song. This is me. I'm releasing it, and I had a family. I'm like, wait, that's you? Yes. So I
Yeah.
don't blame you for your parents not knowing. I can understand.
I
Um,
wish I could go back about 3 years when I originally started making demos. And I sent some old friends from like college a link, and it just was not good. I think they tried to be as nice as possible, but like some just didn't
um,
respond. I was just like, yeah, that was like, man, I can't imagine how bad that sounded back then when I was still like before I really knew how to do anything. Because it's just it's embarrassing. Even if it's not bad, it's still embarrassing sometimes.
that's that's different. And it sounds like your spouse is very supportive of your endeavors, so that definitely
Yeah,
helps.
yeah, she is.
Because it's kind of hard to have a ship go a direction without that commitment and stuff to it. So, um, kind of learning through there. Um, yeah, it's really exciting to have this conversation with you, get down in the depths of it. Um, for the music perspective, the Christian community is very against metal in some places where they're at, like Christian moms against metal. I find it so funny. I
Yeah.
look forward to being on their page.
Oh wait, this page exists.
Yeah, it
Oh
is.
no.
And
I
it's
mean,
on
I'm not
that,
surprised, but
and
yeah.
then it's more like Christian moms against deathcore.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've heard of a band called Indra. There's a guy, his name's Screamy Mimi. He's a Christian. He's been targeted on that page before for being a Satanist. So
Oh,
um,
of course.
it's hilarious. So I hope my song gets on there because all of my music is all Christ focused and centered. So yeah, if I do end up on there, I 100% know that they weren't even looking at the lyrics.
Right. They never are. That's the thing.
No.
People are so quick to judge, and it's like, did you look at like the lyrics of what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, not to get me wrong, in deathcore there are very like not even unironic Satanist songs. Like you
Oh,
can find
sure.
that
Yeah.
in me. Like Blue Oyster Cult was famous, like literally in the name Blue Oyster Cult. So, um, but yeah, I find that bit interesting where some people are like, "Are you sure?" Yeah, I'm sure it's fine. If not, I'm gonna be wrong. So might as well embrace being wrong.
Yeah.
Trying to put out stuff that's right and uplifts people. So that's
Right.
something that I really got. I have a couple good friends in my faith community that are putting out music, and it's like I could listen to what Babylon has, or I could listen to what I have and what I like, and have lyric content that's not misleading or satanic or doing anything of that nature, because I know it's pure and honest and uplifting. So really pushing through and keeping it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the internet quality is bad right now. To settle any rumors, internet in Japan is not amazing like people make it out to be, because I'm still waiting for that to happen. And I've been here for 6 years. It has not improved.
Wow.
So
So you said, are you in Japan because of being in the military,
yeah,
or are this correlated? Okay, very cool.
yeah. Um, very different. I'm ready to go back home. I haven't touched foot on US soil in 4 years, basically due to COVID. COVID ruined a lot of people's lives and affected mine pretty immensely by all these lockdowns. So I'm excited to go back. So I'm hoping I end up on the East Coast, kind of get closer to some family and some possible future work opportunities. And I'm not going to name my school. People can find my LinkedIn and see what school I'm associated with, but I have a school that's on the East Coast that I kind of like be inclined to be closer to. So it'd be cool to actually step foot in the school that I've been taking online classes with since 2015. It'd just be cool to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
did the
just
same thing. I did a master's degree online and never went to the school until graduation day. So
you're like, what's up?
it was a funny
I'm one of
feeling.
you.
Yeah,
I'm one of
I'm one
you.
of you finally. Yeah.
It's so weird. The cringiest thing was I got an email link to a online fraternity slash sorority, and I'm like,
Online.
yeah.
How do they do like the fraternity
Zoom.
hazing online?
Zoom, I guess. Like here, I'll pour the bucket on my head. Here,
Yeah.
get down, cat. But yeah, I don't mean to disrespect them. They do good stuff. They coordinate and stuff. So
Yeah.
I can't say much because I'm on a online student government association, so I can't really
Mm.
clown on them without clowning on myself for stuff. But it's interesting. But I guess with our age generation, I'm not an early adopter. Like for school, I made a Hotmail to get a YouTube account and we had to watch YouTube videos. It never occurred to me that like I could make videos and put on there.
Yeah.
I was using TikTok before it was a thing in America. So it's just kind of been funny watching everybody talk about this app that I have been using before everybody when it was still people dancing on it. So it's just kind of interesting how our generation is just very receptive to new things. I guess growing up, it was like, oh, look, there's this new video game system and there's this new thing and this new thing and this new thing. So like, I feel like our age group has no issues with new things. Um, maybe maybe early millennials might be a little hesitant to it, but I think it's a lot of boomers and Gen X's that are, oh, like if you read the terms and conditions, your Facebook is getting just as much as information as this TikTok here. So
Yeah.
because they just settled a class action lawsuit that basically said if you've had a Facebook account since 2007 from when it first dropped, you're entitled to a lawsuit because they were using your private information illegally,
Mm.
violating terms and conditions. So anyway, but that I digress a little. I'm a little tired. This conversation's been super awesome. Appreciate you coming on, Altarheart. Uh, do you have anything to say? Where can people find your music, and how do fans get to interact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my music is all on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all that. I'm also active on Bandcamp. That's a nice way to support artists as well. Big fan of Bandcamp. Also YouTube, put on my music videos on there. I'll have the my songs when I release the full album on YouTube as well. And I'll be posting like kind of updates from studio sessions on there. I'm trying to get more active on there as well. I plan to do the same with Facebook. So as we've connected on Facebook, for example, active on there as well. Yeah. So happy to connect
Do you
with
have any
anybody. And
merchandise for sale on Bandcamp, like
uh,
physical?
I do not. I haven't done that yet. Maybe down the road, if things start maybe a little more support on there, I might consider that. But for now, just the music is on there as well.
Um, I'll share a buddy of mine's Bandcamp. He did something cool. He made a lyrical booklet that you could purchase with the album download, and he signed it and stuff. So even if he doesn't get big, I still have his thing, and I think that's really cool. So
That is neat.
some different cheap audios, and it's just good high quality printer paper that's a couple staples in it. So it's kind of really cool to go through, and it has like the lyrics for all the songs on the track. So um, but yeah, that is awesome. And link for your music will be in the show notes, folks. So definitely check that out. And you're on Facebook. Are you on any the other social medias like TikTok?
So my music is, but I do not have an account on there. So if you were to
Mm.
to make if you were to make a TikTok, you'd be able to use Fine Dresser or Haze or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Um,
Yeah.
I'd highly recommend doing that too, because TikTok music is going to drop and it's going to highly disturb the music community.
Mm.
So um, I think you're using DistroKid, right? So I think you'll be all right. If it becomes official out,
I
if it
use
becomes an alpha. So
yeah, I use CD Baby for my
oh, CD Baby.
distribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a decentralized accessibility to that nowadays too. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
this has been super fun. I hope you have a great day. Appreciate your time and thanks out to the wife for letting you do this. And I am a little upset that your cats didn't come and disturb your side, but we'll get
Yeah, she
to
must
it.
have been keeping them preoccupied because if you know how cats are, if you keep the door closed, they'll start meowing at you because they're missing out on something. So I kept the door kind of cracked so like they didn't feel like they're being excluded. But I guess they're busy getting breakfast or something. Because over here it's in the morning. I know for you it's late, so probably I'll let you get to
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. I'm gonna end the recording and I want to talk to you offline.
Yeah,
3